Om Shri Sai Ram. Offering my most humble and loving salutations at the lotus feet of our beloved Bhagwan, Shri Sathya Sai Baba. I welcome you all to this episode of his story. And in this episode, we have reached a spot where we believe, and as we understand, made a Vanara Hanuman into the divine being. When he heard this divine song of Gita from the very Supreme Godhead, Sri Ram. So let us begin this evening with our prayer, and I request all of you to please join me in. O Lord, take my love and let it flow in fullness of devotion to Thee. O Lord, take my hands and let them work incessantly for Thee. O Lord, take my soul and let it be merged in one with Thee. O Lord, take my mind and thoughts and let them be in tune with Thee. O Lord, take my everything and let me be an instrument to work for Thee. Om Shri Sai. As I was mentioning, we have reached a spot to dive into this beautiful knowledge base, the knowledge of Atman, the secret of creation, the secret of Godhead, which we beautifully and lovingly address it as the Gita. And I'm sure many of you have complained that we made a lot of gaps. Honestly speaking, when we were continuing as divine inspiration blessings, we didn't realize that this would become such a serious issue. And we had to do our own introspective studies before we could come forth and share whatever little we could grasp, and to gather whatever little we have learned from our Bhagwan. So today, we will continue with this journey and take this story forward. And let me invite my brother Sai Jagdish,
Sai Ram.
Sai Ram. And we
Sai
also
Ram.
have Anil Kumar here. Unfortunately, he has got no electricity in his place, so he's available through the audio. So, brother Anil, welcome.
Sai Ram,
And
brothers. Sai Ram.
I hope your electricity comes and we can even see you also while you are. Okay. So let us begin this evening as we go dive down into this beautiful scripture called the Ram Gita. And as we have heard before, in Rama's time, at least we know there are 4 Gitas now. One was given by Ashtavakra at that time, and other was given by sage Vashishta, which was also called Vashishta Gita. And that was the time when Ram was a young lad of 16 years old, and he asks questions to sage Vashisht, who responds, and that turns into the Gita. And then later on, in the culmination part of the avatar of Ram, Lakshman goes and requests Ram to tell him the secret of Atma. There he delivers to him. And now today we will look at this Gita, which was delivered to our beautiful Lord Hanuman. When Hanuman goes to Lord Ram and says, Ram, tell me this beauty of Gita. So we'll take it from there. And we would also like to share with you the context of it, and we'll understand how this is delivered and how the messaging, even though the real message remains the same, but the delivery model and the content is customized based on the recipient. There it was Lord Hanuman, and I can't help to compare next yuga when Lord Krishna gave it to Arjun, who was the content there, and then Bhagwan Baba in this yuga delivered to us in much more mass. So Ram gave it to one, Krishna gave it to Arjun, but Bhagwan Baba gave it to all of us. It's a massive opening, but at the same time, the content delivered is customized for this era and for the recipient that we are. So we'll make a humble comparison to see how the Gita is flowing and how Bhagwan has delivered this ultimate knowledge of Atma. So, in the likewise, Hanuman goes to Ram and says, "Pray, Lord, teach me Atma Gyan, teach me the knowledge of self," and that's how he starts. So I would leave the floor open for your initial comments, Brother Jagdish, to see, how do you look at these three Gitas, at least, that way, and then let's sketch it out, and then I'll invite Brother Anil also to share.
First of all, offering myself at Bhagwan's lotus feet and praying for the inspiration to think, speak, and also do from Swami. So, firstly, such an involved topic like Gita, like you wonderfully put, it is. It has been customized according to the recipient of this Gita. So Hanuman, you would see in many occasions that he already practices a lot of things like those that are covered in the Gita that was delivered to Arjuna. So, for example, the Karma Yoga. So, in fact, Hanuman never has this thing of Vishada. So, Arjuna starts, let's say, with the Vishada. He says,
Vishal.
"Oh, yeah." So he's the very personification of delusion at that point. And then Swami, in his brilliance, he basically clears that delusion, right? But on the other hand, if you compare with Hanuman, he's already crossed all those stages, and he's directly at the stage of achieve or receiving the direct Atmagyan in its pure unsullied form. And that is the main difference between these two Gitas. So likewise, Swami also, he hits the crescendo directly. He goes directly to the zenith of Atmagyan, and he explains it very beautifully to Hanuman. And so also with other Gitas, as in the ones that you mentioned, the Ashtavakra Gita or the Yoga Vasishtha. Again, Yoga Vasishtha is a discussion between Vasishtha, who is again at the zenith of Atmagyan, and this is given to Rama. There is a bit of Vishada aspect over there in this Vasishtha Gita, but then Rama is not actually sad because of the same reasons as Arjuna. It's on the other hand, he has so much vairagya that he doesn't want to interact with anybody, and then that is a different type of it's a perceived Vishada for us. But then then those discussions are at a totally different level again, right? So yeah, with those I would like to hand it over to Brother Anil.
Wonder. Brother Anil,
Sai Ram, with prayerful pranams at Bhagavan's lotus feet. Namostu Ramaya Salakshmanaya Daivyai Chatasyai Janakatmajayai. Namostu Drendrayamanilebhyo Namostu Chandrarka Marutkanebhyaha. As both of you have pointed out, Hanuman is the Gita that has been coming from yuga to yuga is customized to the recipient. It's always the Lord always ensures that what is every word of his has the right effect that he decides that it should have right at the beginning. So it's always customized to the receiver. And as Brother Sister was saying, the Hanuman already was in a state where he was beyond the sense of doership. When we go through the Sundarakanda, it's so beautiful if we carefully observe. When he's narrating to the Vanaras after he comes back from doing all the heroics across the ocean and in the Lanka, he says, "As I was going, I saw Mainaka. And what occurred to me, what means, the prerana that came to me, I responded based on the prerana. He never says, I have done it. Throughout, no, a very beautiful, subtle message is there in that. If you carefully observe, he always says, this, I got this thought, or I was prompted to do this, and therefore this has happened. He
Happen.
didn't say, I have done it. So he was already at a state where, and he was constantly in the thought of Rama. Rama Nama was in his Roma Roma, right? So he was at a state where, like, actually, in Bhagavata Vahini, Swami writes the whole of the play that has happened in Dwapara between Krishna and Pandavas, right? And in during Ramayana or Treta, with Rama, Lakshmana, Bharata, Shatrughna, Sita, and Mother Sita, and then Hanuman, was actually planned so that it becomes an ideal for the human beings in Kali age. Swami writes, every activity was planned, everything was designed so as to ensure that the humans in the Kali age get a direction of how to reach their goal. So Lord Hanuman, I would say, he was an Amshavatara or Avatara of Rudra Rupa itself, right? So he acted he acted as though, as a individual who goes through various stages of spiritual upliftment, and towards the end he brings in this, his asking Lord Rama has two perspectives to it, as I see. One is the importance of Guru. Swami had started his very first bhajan with Manasa Bhajare Guru Charanam Dustara Bhava Sagara Taranam. The importance of a guru for one to really realize oneself was a very, it's very important. And this is what was brought out, I feel, by Lord Rama and Hanuman acting this play. Lord Hanuman went and asked, and even in Lakshmana Gita, Lord Rama and Lakshmana acting that play. Lakshmana was himself Adishesha, right? There was no need for him to really go and seek Atmajnana from Lord Rama. But it was done to give us that message. One of the messages, as I see, is to give us that message that there is a necessity of a guru in the ultimate. Finally, to reach the ultimate, guru is a must. And as Swami
See,
says, Guru is God Himself. God Himself is Guru.
yes.
But all the same, so when that God comes in the form of an avatar, that's the privilege that all of us had and are continuing to have, then God Himself becomes our Guru. But the importance of Guru is one aspect that comes out here. And the way beautifully the customizing of this Atmic knowledge to each individual is something so beautiful in our scriptures. So when we see how different it is, the path that has been taken for same Lord Rama takes to, when we compare Lakshmana Gita with Hanuman Gita, right? It's so different. So
Yeah,
beautifully,
I was actually about to say that also, because in Lakshman Gita he's more direct.
Hmm.
He's
yeah,
more direct, and here he at least takes him through at least some kind of a process.
Journey, right?
yes, journey. Because
So, I mean,
Lakshmana
as you
had no thought of his own.
correct, he
Lakshmana
had
was at
already
a completely different level, right? Or an order different. So he didn't have a thought of his own or volition of his own, and therefore it was directly the ultimate that was taught to Lakshmana. But
true.
when Hanuman, it's like the, so I said no. I think Lord Hanuman is epitome as an example, an ideal for us to follow, for us to understand how we need to, what are the steps we need to take, and how we need to lead our life so that we reach the ultimate.
See, when you look at it, the first verse of Lakshman Gita, Ram says to Lakshman that you have to live your life and conduct based on the scriptural dictums. Okay, so
Yeah,
that way it becomes
correct.
Guru. To Hanuman, the first question when Hanuman says, "Give me Atmagyan," he starts with Vedas.
Hmm.
As you rightly said, that he was looking for Guru. He said Guru. So, and Guru for that age was not a personal being per se, but it was a knowledge base. So he
Yeah,
directs him to the Vedanta first, and he says, "This is Ved," and then he starts describing different Vedas. Now it's very interesting. Today we are, the community, society, as society, we are waking up to learning about Vedas. But here I notice that there are 21 Rig Vedas,
yeah,
9,100 Yajur Vedas,
yes,
and 1,000 Samaveda. Atharva Veda was around 50, so roughly around 10,171
These are the
branches of
shakhas
yeah.
of the
Veda,
Vedas, branches.
shakhas of the Vedas.
Yeah.
Shakas. They're
And
all
then each,
shakas.
yeah, and each shakha had an Upanishad.
Yeah,
And Upanishads are basically, like I jokingly say, that it's a research document of each rishi. Every rishi who has done a research on that, it is there. So there are so many Upanishads, and there's 108 and odd Upanishads are popular because the rest were lost. Out of that, 10 Upanishads, I think Lord Adi Guru Shankaracharya made it very popular, in which Isha, Kena, Katha, Prashna, Munda, Mandukya, Taitriya, Chandogya, and others, they are very popular. So, interestingly, how they present it, he has broken it down to 10, then 32 Upanishads, and then 108 Upanishads. And then Bhagwan Ram tells him that even if you study one, Mandukya, because that deals with Omkar, you will achieve liberation, you will achieve the ultimate. And if you cannot, then you study the 10, and then you will reach Karma Mukti. If you still can't get it, then you study 32, then you will get Jivan Mukti. So it is like, there is a slab, but imagine the effort required in that yug is that you have to go through this process
Correct.
to achieve what he has mentioned. How do you compare this? Because imagine reading 108 Upanishads or 1,000 and 1,100 odd Ved shakhas. Today it is kind of impossible. It is, if it is anybody, it's a lifetime achievement award. If
Hmm.
anybody can do it, he has to be really groomed into Gurukula system to probably still. I don't think in Kali Yuga it is possible. How do you both compare and see in today's context how Bhagavan has summarized this whole Vedic studies?
So normally speaking, right? So there is a particular ritual that is normally prescribed for every sadhaka, which is called Brahma Yajna. Everybody should normally perform. So what, in essence, this Brahma Yajna is basically to read, to have this swadhyaya. So how do you pick up a particular book that is given to you by a rishi, read it and practice, right? So that is the Brahma Yajna that has been prescribed. So that is one of the Pancha Yajnas also. And in fact I mean satiates the rishi runam that we have. Okay, so I can hear myself.
No one's
Okay,
no, Anil logged in 1 minute.
okay, never mind.
Okay, here is
So,
one.
yeah.
Sai Ram sir.
I know.
So in this Brahma Yajna, right? So one of the things that comes is that the first thing that it says is Athato Dharma Jigyasa. Okay, which is okay. Brahma Yajna actually takes the first lines, or at least the most important parts of various Vedas and the Vedangas, and it's a collation of all of that. And one should normally give more stress to the Veda that they specialize in, and so on. Okay, so without going into too much details of what Brahma Yajna is, so first one is Athato Dharma Jigyasa, and then comes Athato Brahma Jigyasa. The gurus and the rishis say that the arrangement is such because in a person's life one should first go through all the dharmas, so the dharma karyas, so which means which includes study of the various Vedas, all the rituals that are laid in over
We
there,
can
for
simplify it as a varnashrams, ashrams.
correct, correct.
No, it's not
Ashram.
only ashrams.
It's
No,
not
no, no.
just the ashram;
I
it's the
would put it this
dharma.
way. Dharma, I think we should refer to the Dharma Vahini of what Bhagwan has
Swami.
told us. Dharma, beautifully Swami explains, Dharma is what is one's nature,
Mm,
right? There are two definitions of Dharma. Dharma is duty. Both
correct.
are from Swami. Swami says, what is the essence of Gita? I think many times we would have all heard it, Swami telling. Take the first letter of the sloka, Dharma Kshetre, Kurukshetre, and
Kurukshetra.
the last
Mama
letter
Dharma.
of the last sloka, Mama, right?
Mama.
Mama
Mama,
Dharma.
Mama dharma.
what is Mama Dharma? And Swami is to invariably translate it as my duty.
Mm,
So here duty actually is at various levels. When we look at it as a human being with a body, right? Body level duty, right? Then the duties of what we normally term as um, one second, I'll just respond.
Okay, Jagdish, carry on. Sorry, he's got.
yeah. So there, there is a clear transition between, there is a dharma jigyasa and there is a brahma jigyasa. So after having fulfilled all your duties, or having done justice to that part of your life, that is when you do the dharma, the brahma jigyasa. So also is this sequence that Rama gives here. He tells you about the all the Veda shakhas, and what is over there, and then about the Upanishads, which basically, again, the arrangement is such, the Veda shakhas, each Veda is again divided into the Samhita bhaga, the Aranyaka bhaga, the Brahmana, and then the Upanishad. Okay, so while the Samhita is basically a collation of all the mantras that are there in the Veda, the Aranyakas talk about certain rituals, and the Brahmanas talk about how these rituals must be performed and which mantra from the Samhita or the Aranyaka Bhaga should be used at which point while performing a particular ritual. And then finally, the Upanishads come. Here also, you see that there is a transition from Dharma, which the first three talk about, into Vedanta. While Vedanta and the Brahma Jigyasa is always a thread that is running throughout these rituals which are there, right? So
Correct.
with that, yeah,
So
yes, sir. Please go ahead with your point.
So that's where actually the duty is the duty of an individual. At when we look at an individual as the equate him or her to the body, then it's bodily related duties. That is the varnashrama dharmas, right? Then the ashrama dharmas, right? That is the gruhastha, the various stages of life, the various types of work that we do. So duties related to that one has to do. Like brother just now said, brother Jagdish said, see, swadhyaya pravachanabhyan pramaditavyam.
Mm,
Shikshavalli, we all chant Vedamanuchyacharyo. In fact, Swami makes every convocation starts with Vedamanuchyacharyo. Right?
mm,
It's a thing that Swami ensures that all of us learn, because in that part of the Sikshavalli, we have the Satyam Vada Dharmanchara, right? Matrudevo Bhava, Pitrudevo Bhava, Acharya Devo Bhava, Tidhi Devo Bhava coming. There only continuing that Vedamata tells us Swadhyaya Pravachanabhyan Pramaditavyam.
Pramoditavyam.
Do not give up or do not stop Swadhyaya. Right? So
And
So
also
which means,
pravachana.
and
in a
also
simple, yeah, in a simple
so
way, what I'm trying to convey is that means whether you are in Satyuga or a Kalyuga or a Treta Yuga, this reading, the Swadhyaya is the common thread. Now,
Perfect.
it
yeah,
may not
you
be
know why?
that detailed, but there is a
Correct. But
common
you
thread.
know why? Yeah, now you link it to the other one. See, one a definition of Bhagwan is Mama Dharma, where the word duty has connotations related to the body. But what is the primary duty of an individual? Because Dharma
Yes.
Swami has said, you know what is Dharma Swami's definition? One's nature is Dharma. Swami used
Yeah.
to very beautifully give the examples of the burning is the Dharma of fire, making things
Right.
wet is the Dharma of water.
Water.
So if fire doesn't burn, you can't call it fire, right? So Swami continues that and says the dharma of an individual, of a human being, is to constantly realize that he is not this body but he is divine and act as though he is divine.
Correct.
That is our dharma. So that is where when Brother Jagdish said the running thread is Brahma Jignasa,
Correct.
our whole every act, every duty, Varnashrama dharma that is done for the purpose and with the perspective of that I am divine, that
Beautiful.
I should
I think
merge back,
I think that
right?
the
So that
conversation.
is the dharma that Swami is talking about. So this is the
Beautiful.
combination that we have to look at,
See, in the next,
right?
as we move
So
forward, you realize that Lord Ram, the
one
discussion
aspect I
goes
want to touch before you move forward.
okay, tell me.
You mentioned that in for Lakshmana, Lord Rama said that discipline is important, while for Hanuman, Lord Rama said Vedas. You have to read Vedas and Vedangas, right? But
No,
actually,
no, not
reading of Vedas and Vedangas itself is discipline, right? How
of
do
course,
you
of
do
course.
Swadhyaya? It's a discipline. In fact, no, one thing that has been that even Bhagwan writes in his very first Vahini, very, very unusual thing that I observed when I was going through Prema Vahini was that Swami gives so much importance in Prema Vahini on discipline and Nishta, what we call as Nishta. Nishta means regular practice.
Mm.
Regular practice, and Swami gives so much importance to that. And we see the same thing being reflected in Ram Gita. Lord Rama talks about Nishta. Lord Rama says that come what may, even the yogi who has attained everything should continue as long as the body is there, should continue doing the Nishta. Should continue, that means the daily spiritual practices.
Mm.
Even the one who is realized, as long as the body is there, and we have seen this. Swami, when Bhagavan says my life is my message, Swami followed it right till the
Then
body
yes.
existed, right?
Okay, keeping
There
this
was no
topic,
days
I want to
uh,
I want to take you there because what you all discussed, that was natural progression in Rama Gita, wherein
Mm.
Ram starts discussing about GV. And that is where I was thinking that it's interesting that you already started talking about it. And Ram explains that there are two types of GV. One is lower self, and another one is the witness self, as it is called, Sakshi Bhava. And the
correct.
lower self is born of ignorance and it dissolves. The dissolution is like any other Vikritis.
Mm.
One who is born, he dies. That's the lower self. And the witness self comes from Brahma, Brahma Vidya, and it goes back into super consciousness. So this is how he describes the two types of GVs. And you were already started telling about, the responsibility and dharma of a GV. And look at how he has defined it. And then he takes on this whole explanation. And there Hanuman poses a question, and I think that's an interesting question. And Hanuman says to Lord Ram, as per Advaitins, GV has no origin. So people say, that it has come from like the witness self he's talking about. He says, and I think most of people will agree with Hanuman right here and then see how Hanuman gets responded back. He says,
Correct.
GV has no origin, then it is impossible that it can have an effect. So
Mm.
if it has an effect, then it has no origin. And if it had origin, then it must have dissolution. And if it
Correct.
has dissolution, then it cannot be Brahman. And then the
Beautiful.
unity as declared by Shruti is inaccurate. That is what Hanuman poses to
Asks.
Ram. It's a very beautifully worded question. And we always talk about it in different ways. But here, when Ram explains lower self and witness self, it starts making sense. But I think Bhagwan Baba has explained it also very, I would say, directly and very sweetly. So I would leave to both of you to jump in. So GV has no origin, and if it has no origin, it can't have effect. And if it has origin, then it has dissolution. How do we understand this apparent dichotomy?
I would like to actually first I think Rama also actually tackles this very, very directly. And but for that you have to look at the shloka. The shloka says, brahma vidyod bhavasya sphulingasyeva pavakat vinasha prakrutau khasyam swasyam brahmanyadvaya chidghane. So in fact, if you look at the first sentence here, he says brahma vidyod bhavasyasya sphulingasyeva pavakat. So there, when he says that, the sphulingaha means the sparks that
Park.
come out of the flame, right? So this witness self, or the which is the actual self, right? Which is the undiluted actual self, the witness self, the sakshi, that is a spark which comes out of the fire. But if you look at this sloka carefully, is the spark different from the fire? It is not.
It's
So
not.
yeah, so there itself, in that, by usage of that spulinga seva pavakat, it is a clear indication that he's already saying that this is basically devoid of all the ajnana and all the malinyam, and it is basically directly part of the original or the ultimate self, which is Parabrahma, right? So that way, this sloka is very beautiful. That's what I wanted to draw your attention to before we jump into
Sure.
the details of this. But then he says, yasmat bhutani jayante yena jivanti yatra cha liyante gneyamekam tad brahmaivahi mumukshubhihi. So here, basically he talks about, um, uh, he what he's exactly talking about is the attributes that we normally give to the Parabrahma, and he says that this witness self and that Parabrahma are the same, because they create, they keep things alive, and they also destroy. This is the Upanishad Vakyam where it says, uh, out of which everything comes, out of by which everything is sustained, and into which everything dissolves, right? So here he is basically very clear, and he is basically, I think, removing the chaff from the actual grain here, and he's saying the lower self, and this is the witness self, right? So that's the first impression that I get from this particular
No,
thing.
but
I think
I think
Swami has
Swami
given
also gives.
uh,
Yeah, Anil, please go
Swami
ahead.
has given
Tell.
beautiful analogies for this. As you were saying it, I was just remembering. See the wave and the ocean.
Mm,
The ocean is the Brahma Padartha,
padartha.
and the wave is the Jivi. Is the wave different from the ocean? No.
No, not at all.
But below the moving wave, what is the one? There's a still ocean below.
Mm,
Because there is still ocean below, the wave on the top can move.
correct.
Right? In fact, Upanishad talks about the same thing exactly as Lord Rama has said, only thing with an allegory. It says there is a tree, and on the tree there are two birds.
Mm,
One bird is silently watching, unmoving, it just keeps watching. The other bird keeps jumping and moving vigorously. What is this allegory? Exactly what you said. The one GV, which is the Brahma Patartha, or the supreme being, right, is unmoving still. What moves and what appears to be moving, right, is the GV, which we call as the all of us Jivatmas, right?
right.
Another analogy that Swami gives is, imagine you are talking about two GVs, right? There is a
Mm,
Brahma, there is a GV, there is the Lord, right? There is a Paramatma and the Jivatma, right?
jiva.
Imagine there is, how was these two created? Swami very often says in spirituality, 3 minus 1 is 1 and not 2. You must have heard this many times. Swami talks about this, right?
Yes.
And what? How does it happen?
The
You keep a mirror.
spiritual
Uh,
Spiritual
mathematics.
mathematics.
you keep a mirror. You keep a mirror, right? What happens is, mirror the Paramatma and the Jivatma. You find three.
Mm,
You remove the mirror. You have only Paramatma remaining.
Paramatma.
So as long as the Jivatma does not realize that he or she is a reflection of the divine, reflection of the Paramatma, he tends to constantly keep moving, thinking there is a reality for himself or herself, and constantly keeps jumping around.
Mm.
not realizing that actually he is the Paramatma. It is because of the mirror called Maya, he is seeing himself as different. If he removes this mirror, if he is able to overcome this Maya, he will see that he doesn't exist. There is nothing like he existing. He never existed. He is not
Yeah.
existing. He is not going to exist. Right? So there are two GVs. There are two. This is a perspective. This is what in quantum physics we talk of perspective becoming very important. The
Right.
experimenter is the part of the experiment. Observer
Right.
is part of the observation. In fact, not just part of the observation. We define the observation. We define
Correct.
the result. The way we see, the way we perceive, we define the result beforehand.
Correct.
It is our perception. The minute we think of something, we are already deciding what the consequences should be.
Correct.
But
Right?
I'll throw in another for discussion purpose. I'll throw in another outlook to it. Is that people, we as a devotees, when we start so-called practicing these concepts, people start tending, as we say, philosophizing to it,
Mm.
and they say, "I am God," "I am this, so why should I suffer?" Or if God is everywhere, then what is the problem of? So there is always the challenge. How do you keep yourself balanced? And I find this question which Hanuman has asked actually gives that kind of a flavor.
Yeah.
That how can one GV be this, and because I can
Philosophy
come from a
versus
perspective, I
convenient
can come.
philosophy.
Yeah, convenient, as Bhagavan would say, is a convenient philosophy. But many people fall for it because we suddenly start feeling that, oh, everything is for me, and then suddenly something happens, and thank you very much. And then it becomes a personal matter. So how do we differentiate? How has Bhagavan given a solution to it to understand? Yeah, like that. Remember that you were telling about that. Don't ride on two boats in the same time, kind
Yeah,
of.
yeah. Not
Uh,
done. See,
so
that was an incident. I think I should recall that. Good, you
yeah,
reminded me.
please.
This was during 1986. In 1986, our PhD time. We we four of us were taken in as research scholars in 1986. Different subjects, of course, not same subject, but four research scholars were given opportunity by Bhagwan to join that year as research scholars. And because that being the first year, we joined the hostel late because after all the MBA normal admissions got over, then Swami decided who should be given the PhD opportunity in our university, right? So we didn't join the hostel. We were there. We were staying in the boys' hostel, which is right opposite present at that time Mandir, right? Prashanti Mandir, right opposite the Mandir, the north block of opposite the Mandir. That was called as the students' hostel. So before we staying there only, we didn't go to the actual hostel opposite the Sai Gita shed. So we had one great, wonderful blessing and an opportunity that morning time students don't come. Morning times, even the faculty and even the mandir administration, after the darshan, they all used to go off to their respective work. We used to stay till bhajans were over and Swami retired in the morning. We used to stay till that time and then go to college. Swami gave us that permission because we are still not registered for PhD. We were told, Swami said you can join, but Swami didn't tell us to go and join the hostel, didn't tell us to go and start the work. So we had that opportunity for few months. This happened till the end of October. And so four of us used to sit there, and Bhagwan very lovingly, out of his mercy, used to call us after the interview. No one used to be there almost. Very few guests, VIPs used to be there, and devotees, of course, who had come for darshan. And in the portico per se, only four of us were sitting. And Swami used to sometimes finish interviews early and then call us for 15, 20 minutes between the interview, after the interview, before the bhajans. So, and then speak to us. And Bhagwan, like just now, Abhi, you mentioned, what can you speak to Lord Rama? It has to be Atma Jnana, right? So, we all have experience. Swami converts everything into spirituality and how to lead one's life. So, Swami was speaking about these aspects only to us, including research also. Swami used to say how we should do, on what topic should we do, all that Swami was guiding. And among four of us, there was one who was little, I would say, little maybe lazy is too strong a word, but little lenient with respect to his getting up and getting ready. Invariably, he used to get up a little late and not finish his ablutions and get ready before darshan. So he used to come invariably after darshan. By the time Swami finishes interview, he used to target. He used to target that time and then come by that time so that he knows if Swami calls, I'm ready. We can all
Every
go. So he used to have competition. So that's how he used to manage. And Swami also, Swami observes everything. There's nothing that Swami does not know. And he plays. So invariably, just to catch him, Swami, a few days, what he did, he used to finish interview earlier than he could reach. Means so fast that normally we expect 45 minutes to 1 hour interview, right? Swami finishes off in half an hour and comes out. His boy is still not there, and only Swami has already come out, right? So and Swami used to call us in. So one such day, Swami called us in. Only three of us were there. If we all went in, and then if, obviously the message immediately reaches, he ran and came. By the time we are all seated around Bhagwan in the interview room, and Swami was speaking to us. This boy also sheepishly entered the interview room, opened the door carefully, came in, closed the door, and he came silently and sat along with us. And Swami was talking to us. Swami looked at him, smiled, and said, Papam, because you think but that Bhagwan is everywhere, right? You don't feel the necessity of coming for darshan. No? Swami asked him. So, didn't know it was a very delicate question. If he says no, are you saying Swami is not everywhere? Right? If he says yes, so err on the right side, we say no. So
Right.
to err on the right side, he said yes, Swami. So Swami then said, beautifully. Then Swami took that opportunity to teach all four of us a beautiful lesson. Swami said, see, it's good. But you have to take one path. Do not ride two horses. రెండు
Mm.
గుర్రాల సవారి చెయ్యొద్దు, Swami said. Do not ride
Chayodhu.
two horses because it is very dangerous. It will nearly lead to an accident. Right? What are the two horses, Swami said? See, if you believe that I am everywhere, constantly be in that thought that I am everywhere, and I will respond to you that way. You will experience me that way. Or you think that I am in this body, in this physical frame, divinity has come like this, and then come for darshan. But don't, means if you have not come for darshan, think that Swami is there, okay, for some time, and then switch your attitude and say, no, Swami is in the physical form, and therefore Swami has to speak to me. Swami physically has to call me for interview. Swami physically has to recognize my presence. You should not expect that. Be either on this end or be on that end. But don't be in, as and when you want, don't switch your
Mm.
uh, attitude. That is like riding two horses. You can't be switching attitude, right? That becomes convenient and that leads to danger. Invariably, this happens with all of us. When things are going fine, we suddenly say Bhagwan is taking care of everything, right?
Mm.
And when suddenly there is some difficulties coming, we switch and forget that actually we were ourselves constantly saying that Swami takes care of our life, Swami is the doer, and all that we are already saying in various aspects in our life. Suddenly we forget that and say, what is this? Why did I not do that? I should have done that. I should have done this. Suddenly we start questioning ourselves. So in that confusion we lead to messing up our life. So if we surrender once and for all. There is nothing like half surrender. There's nothing like partial surrender. That's what Swami says. No, there's nothing like partial devotion, part-time devotion. You have devotion or you don't have devotion. That's all it is. It's binary.
Let me take
It's
you to the
binary.
next. Yeah, let me take you to the next topic from the same thought flow. It's a very beautiful thought which has reached here. See, now we have understood. Lord started with the guru importance, and then he discussed about the GV who has to get trained, and what is GV. He gave us the two aspects of GV. One is on the physical plane, one is on the different plane than physical. And now Bhagavan has also taught us that uh, be honest about it, whichever plane you are in. Don't
Mm.
pretend to be, all that
On
and
this
then
place.
you get confused.
Right.
So
Right.
be in whichever level you are, be honest to it, and naturally the growth will happen. The growth will happen on an a direction, which is very interesting. And I find that in the next approach, what happened here? Okay, so here now look at the culmination of what he calls it as a mukti. Bhagwan Ram gives us 5 types of muktis. We know about this, but I never thought of them as muktis. You know, I don't know. Like for me, I knew about the Samipya, Salokya, but I didn't realize them as a kind of mukti.
Hmm.
Bhagwan Ram has described them. So Samipya mukti. So which means just by being near, we can achieve the ultimate. So that
Definitely.
that the quest that from physical to non-physical, from near to far or near to internalize, we have to go. There is nothing to go anywhere. What I realized from this is that yes, ultimately you will naturally jump, but there is no need to have a kind of a goalpost that okay, when I reach here now, next I have to go there. You can just submerge yourself in that state of GV, and Lord will take care of the rest. It'll get so very interesting when you look at this. That 5 stages he has given of different ways of getting to the Lord: Samipya, Salokya, Sarupya, Sayuja, and Kavalyam. So briefly, if you can, share some thoughts on this.
In fact, the other before we came here, we were talking about the river merging in an ocean, right? So
Awesome.
very similar to that. So in fact, because the various stages, also probably when an ignorant fly, let's say, it goes near a flame, what happens to it? It loses its identity, right? So I think this is basically a stage wise description of how a, an individual ego loses its identity and then slowly and slowly merges in the divine. So samipya being, so what we have experienced to some extent, being close to Swami, or even if you have any murti of any god that you worship, I think that is in a way a certain type of samipya, because the same verses in fact also talk about Ishvara and the world being created by you. So if Ishvara is being created by you, there is a murti of Ishvara that is being created, and it is being given its godhood by you. So in that way you are already samipya to that particular god that you are already creating by yourself, right? So and then the salokya, without going into too much details about how that happens, and into the we'll park it for a little later, probably when we go into more detailed or more involved spiritual discussions. But then very high level, so salokya being in the same space like you mentioned here. Sarupya, I think Bharata was a great example of this Sarupya. They say that Bharata, when he was away from Rama for these 14 years, and he was in this Nandigrama when he was waiting for Rama, and humbly serving his country as a representative of the Lord, while all the while placing Ramapadakas on the throne, right? So, in fact, it seems that when Rama returned, they could not say who is Bharata and who is Rama. So that was the level of sarupya that he had. That they both looked alike. Okay. Sayujya, the yud, it comes from again the yuj dhatu, which means to merge, or so yoga yuj is basically where it comes from, to merge. So here it is oneness. So here still we are talking about two things, because there is X that is merging in, let's say, a larger X, right? So there is a Jivatma, which is a smaller X, that is merging in a larger Paramatma, and therefore there are still two. But in Kaivalya, that's above. There is no two. There is no individual ego there. There is only one, and that is Paramatma. Just like Sir was mentioning some time ago about the mirror. You remove the mirror, and then there is just one, the Paramatma Tattva. That is Kaivalya. So here I think Kaivalya also talks about completely losing oneself, whether by surrender. So that's why I think surrender is probably the zenith of many spiritual sadhanas that we have, right? So there, your individual ego is lost completely in the ocean that is the Paramatma.
I
Yeah.
mean, don't you see that Samipya, we, by, I would say
Swami
it's
gives
a
it.
grace, pure grace of God,
Yeah, yeah.
that we have experienced all these things. Otherwise, we won't even be able to talk about it. So, if you look at it,
Obviously.
Samipya is not just the physical connect, it is the feeling that I am no close to God. Am I
Mm.
right?
It's a heart to heart. It's a heart to heart, Swami says.
It's a heart,
Our
yeah, heart to
relationship is
heart
heart to
connect. Yeah, I think I would put
connect.
it as Samipya as heart to
See,
heart
Swami gives an
connect.
analogy. Heart, yeah. Swami gives an analogy for Samipya, right? If a charcoal is brought near a burning fire, what
Mm.
happens to the charcoal? Does the charcoal need to have
Right.
do any tapas or sadhana to burn? No, no. It's already come near the fire, so it burns. So Swami used to say nearness is also equally important. It's not only nearness to the physical form, the divine being, to the as the brother Jagdish said, to the idol in which we one perceives all the divine qualities. Nearness to that idol. That's where we always see in our in various pictures and paintings, Mirabai constantly being with Lord Krishna's idol, right? So there is that nearness, that samipya tends to have tremendous effect on an individual. That is the reason why Swami is to invariably, I would think this way now, thinking aloud, Swami is to give a rupa, a locket of his own form, right? Or some other ring with a particular form, because this is to create that link, that closeness, that nearness for the individual with the Ishtadevata of that individual,
How
right?
would you look at
It means
Salokya? How would you look at Salokya?
Salokya is constantly living. Actually, it is Salokya. This one, no, we have to look at it this way. Salokya comes from the best way to understand Salokya is Adi Shankaracharya's that beautiful poem, no? Atmatvam Girija Matis Sahachara Prana Shariram
Prana.
Graham Pujate Vishayopabhoga Rachana Nidras Samadhi Sthiti Sanchara Padayo Pradakshina Vidis Stotrani Sarvagiro यद्यत् कर्म करोमि तत्थदखिलं शंभो
Shambho
तव
Aradhanam.
आराधनम्. So sarva karma bhagavad prityartham is salokya.
Beautiful.
You do everything, no matter it may be just breathing, it may be just sleeping, but everything is done with only one attitude of a worshipful attitude to the divine, or an attitude of love. Like in fact, today is happens to be Radhashtami, Mother Radha Rani's birthday, right? And what has she lived Salokya. She was constantly in the thought of Krishna, and in that Krishna prema only every act of hers was done. So,
So is
so
not
was Lord Hanuman.
in that
So,
definition is not
see,
Salokya
in a
becomes
sense,
Samipya?
Samipya is physical or internal heart to heart connect. Either it's a physical connect or a heart to heart connect, right? Radha Rani did not have a physical or a connect. It had she had heart to heart connect, but she also lived every act like Lord Hanuman also constantly Ramanama, and every act was done only for the sake of Lord Rama, right? So that becomes Salokya. So the action is Salokya, the feeling is Samipya. We can put it that way. Another way to look at it is the action is Salokya, while the feeling is Samipya, right?
Why
And
I'm asking? Because
together they lead to Sarupya. Together, like another example which we can take is Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. We read it that as he was uh, behaving, developing the love for Krishna, he got the features of Gopikas. As he
Mm.
was developing love for Lord Rama, he got a tail growing. That is Sarupya. The intensity of his sadhana was so much that he was getting the form which he was and the form which was the closest to that Godhead, right? So that
You
is
know why?
Sarupya.
Why I ask this thing is because I realize when Ram Gita, Salokya comes first, and Bhagwan Baba usually refers to Samipya first. So I was wondering maybe it's a time difference that today Salokya is difficult in today's context. So Samipya becomes slightly easier compared to Salokya. So probably he put the Samipya first for us to okay. Don't have to worry about doing everything for Bhagavad Prithiyartham. At least be in the thought of God first.
Yeah, possible.
Correct.
Maybe I'm just throwing my thought because the way it is weaved now I understand because I always believe that the sequence which avatars give in their even the conversations is of significance. It's not a
Yeah,
random
yeah.
placement of words.
No, no. In
Totally.
fact, for
So
that, I would give a beautiful, um, what should I say, two statements that Swami says. No, I really thinking about it. I realized even the sequence becomes so important. Swami said, "Love all, serve all." Okay, that he didn't say serve all, love all. Why? If it is serve all, love all, then it becomes like any other service activity.
Mm.
So first you love everyone, and through that, because you love and because you see your ishta devata in everyone, you love everyone, and because of that attitude of love you serve, then it becomes spiritual sadhana. Whereas he said help ever, hurt never. He didn't say hurt never, help ever. Why? As you keep on helping, you will stop hurting,
Mm.
yeah.
right? If you start with hurt never and help ever, hurt never rarely comes, and very difficult to,
So fear will not come at all.
it will not come at all. So
Yeah.
he said, forget about hurting never. It will come by itself. You start off with
Well,
help ever. So even in
That's
these two
Samipya,
common
Salokya.
statements, no? Yeah, even in these two common statements, how Bhagwan has shown that sequence matters a lot,
mm.
right? We have to understand that it's why has Swami given? Swami could have given serve all, love all. We all would have said serve all, love all. Whatever
Mm.
sequence Swami gives, we'll follow it, right? Why did Swami give the sequence? So,
It's very,
as you
very.
said, just how sequence matters, sequence really matters.
So Samipya and Salokya. So in a way, Salokya is a little bit of, as you said, Bhagavad Prityartham. So you have to be totally focused on God. Samipya is
Yes.
still to the feeling level of feeling. You
Yeah.
believe, you feel that way. And then the effect of it is Sarupya. And that effect, when it culminizes, it becomes Sayujya.
Yeah.
And the ultimate stabilization of the culmination is Kaivalya.
Mm.
I'm just trying to, I think I am oversimplifying it, but, but just for our benefit. Okay, here one question has come. It's not directly related. Brother Dudi has asked this question. Why at first we install Lord Ganesha statue? Okay, since Ganesh Chaturthi just went, he's asking why do we do Visarjan and what is the spiritual significance of it? If we have installed it, then why do we, you know, say bye to Ganesha and do a Visarjan?
Do
So,
you want me to respond to this, sir?
yeah, please,
Yeah,
please
yeah,
go
yeah.
for
Go
it
ahead, go ahead.
quickly.
So, if you look at the way we install the Ganesha statue and we perform the puja and all, so basically, again, just like I was saying some time ago, who gives that murti or that idol its godhood? It is you who give it, right? So that's why the shastras
Useful. Oh, sorry.
also. No,
Yeah, please carry on. Please carry on. Sorry about it. I didn't realize it.
no worries,
Hmm.
no worries. So that's why the shastras also mention how to do this puja, basically, right? So when you bring this idol and keep, you do something called a prana pratishtha. So once you do the prana pratishtha, it's basically, the mantra says Vang Manas Chakshu Shrotradyaihi Ghrana Rupena Bahihi Agatya Sukhena Charan Tishthantu Swaha. So which means that you bring your five senses. So what is basically life, right? So you're giving basically a life to that form. How are you giving it? In the same form that you have the prana in your body. So how is the prana getting expressed in your body? Through your sense organs, through the prana, pana, vyana, udana, the five pranas that are there in you, and so on, right? So this mantra here, it says that you bring them out in the form of your breath. Normally a flower or something is used to bring it out like that, and that is placed as a as again a symbolic flower, that is, through the flower, that prana is being given to this idol. So when you do that, again, just like Anil sir was saying some time back, you should not do that rendu gurrala savari, meaning that you should not go on two horses. So if you have done that kind of a pratishtha to this idol, it means he's there. Okay, you can't say that, he's there but he's not there. It is Ganesha after that, and it is not an idol of Ganesha anymore, right? So as long as you have brought Ganesha over there, you are supposed to do puja to him. So preferably both times, or three times in a day, or if you cannot, two times in a day, or at least one time in a day. And when you have done that kind of a pratishtha, the Vedas also say that you are supposed to give some kind of solid food to him, because that's how you sustain yourself.
No, I
It's
think
just like,
let me hear
no,
his
I'm
question is
coming.
mainly, yeah,
Hmm,
his question was
I'm
mainly
I'm
going
coming to the
towards
Visarjan aspect.
the surgeon part. Huh?
I'm coming to the Visarjan aspect, right? But without explaining all this, the Visarjan doesn't make sense, right? So that's why. So in the end, when a murti, you send him back to his original place, these five forces that you have given to him are supposed to be taken back into you. Okay, and that is when you do the Visarjan. And this Visarjan is normally done, so there are many beliefs. So many people believe that Ganesha also, he's called Dvaimaturaya Namaha. Okay, he also has two mothers. Who are the two mothers? Parvati and Ganga. Okay, so one of the ways is to basically give him back to Mother Ganga, through which he goes to his original place. But what are you giving back to Mother Ganga is basically just the idol, because the prana pratishtha has it's over. You have taken back those five vital forces back into yourself, and then what is remaining is the idol. And it's also important that is this idol which is there, it's not misused. So as long as the idol is there, it's a divine form, right? So you are supposed to normally send it back in. So normally it's a mud idol that you have. So the mud should go back into its original form, which is clay, right? So the idol should go back into its original form, that is clay. That is the um, you know uh, thought process in which this whole idol worship normally happens. Yeah, brother.
Okay. Duty brother, I hope you got the flavor of it. In a simple way, I can also share my thought is that look at it as a journey of human evolution. So you bring in Ganesha as a physical form, install it, and then you have to go through these 8 steps of yoga, of 8 steps of bhakti, or 8 steps of mergence, under which at the end, like as Brother Jagdish was saying, you have that in you, you become one with that. So it is like as a body grows up and the body has to merge. So similarly, this form which we brought in and installed is our reflection, that we brought the God, and now the God and me are becoming one, and so nothing remains after that. Hence,
Correct.
that idol needs to be Visarjan, because nothing remains. The physicality must go at the end of it. So I think in our cultural system of our country, there are many such festivity created, like Durga, Dashera is one of them. Navdurga is that, the Shivratri is that. So there are many ways in which the rishis have programmed it, that even if in one you click and you reach, great job. So Ganesh Chaturthi can be looked at it that way also, that it is a
I would
journey
like
of.
to make one additional point here, brother, that this is also a way. So I was reminded when you were just mentioning this. So there is something called an antaryaga, which is also performed after every such puja. Okay, so basically, how do you imbibe or have his form without having a form? So you don't have a so have a form first, then take out the form, but have the form in your mind, and then slowly take out the form in your mind, and then go to the nirguna aspect, right? So that is also facilitated by this kind of a
So
removal
all
of the
these
physicality.
festivals, so all these festivals are designed in such a way that if we
Correct.
practice it in the right attitude and the right manner, it is expected us to lead us from physicality to oneness. So it is like
Correct.
that. Okay, anyway, let us proceeding further. The interesting way we are growing is that now when you look at the whole concept of mergence, from GV we saw the ultimate goal, but mergence with what is another concept. What are we merging into? And
Hmm.
that is where the concept of Brahman comes into play. And see how beautifully it is laid out, and I enjoy this process also, Jagdish. When I think of it, like as a master teacher, they give us everything in a very beautiful steps. So he explains the mergence, where are we merging into? And that Brahman, as we call it, the ultimate Godhead, is also defined or described in three types. One is called Sagun Brahma, that is with form, but actually it is not with form, it is with gunas, it is with attributes. I should have written it better as with attributes rather than with form. So
Correct.
Sagun Brahma is with attributes, Nirgun
Form is
is
one of the
without,
attributes.
one of the attributes, yes.
Correct.
So Nirguna is another without attribute. And the beauty of it is the Nirguna Brahma is of two types, and he calls it Salakshana. Nirguna also is Salakshana with attributes, and Alakshana with no attributes. And this is interesting for me. So we have one as Saguna Brahma with attribute, then we have Nirgun Brahma without attribute, so to say. But in that, without the attribute, there is Salakshana and Alakshana in Nirgun Brahma. And after that is Nirguna Tita. And the beauty of it is that it explains, Bhagavan Ram explains it so beautifully. He says, all that what the scriptures are talking about, the way they explain the Supreme Godhead, consciousness, blah, 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 is only up to Nirgun Brahma. And the possibility of contemplation, the possibility of meditation, the possibility of any kind of visualization is only up to Nirguna Brahma. So Nirgunatit is even beyond anybody's comprehension. I believe Brother Anil had to leave, but he was telling me that somebody had one rishi had attempted, but it is so vaguely described and defined that it is as good as not defined. Nirgunatita is so beyond. But let us, Jagdish, let us define ourselves with these two aspects. Sagun Brahma. Let us take it to Sagun Brahma first, and see how we can, look at this one. So Sagun Brahma, as we say, with attributes. How would you the range of Sagun Brahma, if I have to visualize it like that, what it would be?
Yeah. So I think the beauty is that the question also that sometime back, the question that was asked also falls perfectly in place with this particular slide. I think it's a very natural transition into this. So yeah. So coming back to what you were saying, right? The Saguna Brahma has various attributes now. So form being one of them, right? So how do you visualize? So if you take the normal Ganapati aspect, the Siddhi Vinayaka. So Siddhi Vinayaka is the aspect of Ganapati that we do puja to during Vinayak Chaturthi, right? So here we describe him as one with four hands. So where he is holding Pasha, Ankusha, and he's also holding a Modaka, and he's also holding a Varadahasta. Or some people say Abhayahasta, some people say Varadahasta. Never mind. Both are correct. Okay. Why? Because, so, I mean, I think the whole science is basically designed in such a way to basically take you into into purification of yourself, and through purification to the nirguna aspect, because the pasha and the ankusha are there in both of his hands to actually control, to either create a problem. So sometimes creation of a problem is good. So for example, I was reminded of one of the experiences that I was reading of Swami. One of So there was a particular gentleman who was getting ready to in fact end his life because of a particular.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I don't know why
No
this is
worries.
catch up. I'm sorry about that.
Okay, so there was this particular gentleman who was getting ready to end his life because there was a problem that he was not getting over, right? So at that point, Ganesha, our Swami, he basically caused a vighna there. So he stopped it. And I think it is very important for these vighnas to be caused so that in our egos are in check, our we do not go in the wrong path and so on, right? So in such situations, he causes a vighna through the pasha and through the ankusha, basically, where because he stops it. The ankusha is to stop. Ankusha is used basically to stop something. And then the pasha, which is also used to release the flow of of it could be anything, the flow of auspiciousness, the flow of mangalam, the flow of wealth, you call it whatever, that pasha can make those things materialize for you. So why are we talking about this? Because in the saguna brahma aspect, these material accomplishments also become important, because the person who is doing a worship of the saguna aspect is also, he identifies himself as a jiva, as somebody embodied in a body. He has particular requirements, he needs to go cater to something in his life, because he thinks that those things are important for him in that particular frame, and he thinks so because he identifies himself with a particular body and a particular set of thoughts that he has. So there, the saguna brahma aspect is benevolent enough to basically give you the requirements of your identification to yourself as the body. Because you identify yourself to the body and a particular form, and with some certain attributes, you also look at God in those with a form and with those attributes, and he then also leads you to the nirguna aspect after that, where again, so in fact, the design of worship and the design of these festivals that you were mentioning, right, also takes the salakshana part into consideration here, because like I was mentioning, the antaryaga, right, which basically asks you to imbibe, or uh, to meditate upon this form. Although you do not have a form in front of you, you should have a form that you create for yourself by closing your eyes within your mind. You should so the way the form has been described, when the saguna brahma has been described, the same form you should visualize, and you should do the same upacharas within yourself in the mind, without doing something physically. So this becomes a stage which is in between the saguna aspect and the alakshana aspect, where you still visualize with certain amount, a number of attributes that are given to him, but there is no physicality. And then you also, who is performing it is again your creation. You are yourself performing it within your mind as somebody who is apart or separate from the salakshana nirguna brahma, and then you are performing this worship to him. And then the alakshana comes, where you and he are still there, but he doesn't have the attributes, right? And then there is one step beyond, which is
I
the
know it is getting little heavier to dose from that side. But let me put it a little lighter way. So when you look at Saguna Brahma concept of Bhagwan, and it's so fantastic. I remember Bhagwan standing at the darshan in the Kulwant hall, and somebody said, Bhagwan, and somebody had prayed, Swami, show us Virat Swarup. And Bhagwan quietly looked, for a few seconds he was quiet, and he kept looking at devotees. Then he looked at him, and he turned and said, look, this is Virat Swarup. He pointed to the audience, said, this is Virat Swarup. So imagine like 20,000 plus people sitting in the hall, and Bhagwan says, this is my Virat Swarup. And what does that mean? And can I call it Sagun? Because when I understand it from Bhagwan, that whole concept that everything is his limb, then the Saguna is no longer, the attributes are limited to one form.
right.
Even every element of this creation becomes part of the Saguna Brahma.
Totally.
Correct? It's so beautiful that, and that Saguna Brahma is also like this being is Sagun. My hand is also Sagun, right? My leg is also Sagun. My fingers are also Sagun. So every limb is also Sagun. So in that beautiful Saguna of creation, he can even take small forms of Sagun. And that becomes the form of Sagun Brahma. And the Ram Gita and even the Upanishads have explained Nirgun Brahma, the Salakshana, and I was a little amazed, and we discussed it also afterwards, that the Salakshana which they are talking about is the attribute of Nirguna Brahma. So when we say Nirguna Brahma has got no attribute, it is partially correct because it has got no physical attributes which we are used to seeing in the creation.
Mm.
So in the Sagun Brahma attitude or attributes, it is there, but it is subtle, but it is the Nirguna Brahma has that attribute which is not prominent in Sagun Brahma. And those attributes, surprising to me, are mentioned as negative attributes of Nirguna Brahma. And that is another interesting aspect which I found. They call it Salakshana, means having negative attributes.
Yeah.
And why do they call it negative? I says even there, because that negative attributes helps us to contemplate and meditate upon.
Right.
Otherwise, Nirguna Brahma cannot be even meditated upon.
Yeah.
So the aspect of Nirguna Brahma
Exactly.
which we can meditate upon is Salakshana. And the Salakshana, the negative attributes, I would have left a quiz for everybody. Okay, I'll leave it for 2 seconds, 1 minute for audience. What do you think is the Nirgun Brahma's attributes which helps us to contemplate on Nirguna Brahma? So I'll leave you 1 minute for that and I'll come back and give you the answer. But I'll leave the audience for that. If you can pen it down, what do you think are the I'm giving up, 3 attributes of Nirguna Brahma as Salakshana? And then comes the second part. Let me continue so you can keep writing it down if you have any thoughts on what could be the 3 aspects of Salakshana. And the Alakshana is that aspect of Nirguna Brahma which even the 3 negative attributes are not. So it is like the GVs, I would say, the 2 aspects of GV, and you have the 2 aspects of Nirguna Brahma. And that Alakshana, probably I feel, from this interpretation, I'm thinking loud with you, could be the entry point of Nirgunatita. Because that is alakshana which we can't contemplate on. That alakshana aspect is something which cannot be meditated upon, but it is aspect of Nirgun Brahma. And then from there we need move to Nirgunatita. So imagine, even if alakshana is beyond our comprehension, which is an aspect of Nirgunatita, then how can we even wonder about Nirgunatit? It is same thing like a GV. If we can't even comprehend the drishta aspect of GV, that subtle aspect of Jiva, then how can we comprehend even Sagun Brahma and Virat Roop? So first of all, we have to acknowledge that we have the two aspects in our own being.
Correct.
One which plays around and one which is hidden inside. And that hidden inside is actually the main, the director which makes this body run.
Yes.
And that hidden one is attached to the Godhead, Brahman, correct? So look at the transitional part of it, right? So I find that Saguna, the guna fades out into negative guna, which is Nirguna Brahma. That negative guna disappears into alakshana. That alakshana fades into Nirgunatita. Fantastic,
Correct.
right? So 1 minute is over. Audience, do you have any question, any answer
There are
for me?
layers of Brahma,
It is like how much we can dive into it and
Right.
how much we get into it. So I'm really disappointed. No answer has come so far. Mukesh Bhai, Anil, Smita, Vijayji, anybody, what do you, in your thought, in your understanding, what could be the salakshana, what is attributed as the negative attribute of Nirguna Brahma? And just as we wait, Sai, there is, I'm just thinking loud again, that in Saguna Brahma, it is possible that what we call as Chaussat Kalas, the 64 Kalas, which came
Correct.
down to 32 Kalas and 16 Kalas later on,
Right.
is the aspect of Sagun Brahma.
Totally. Exactly. That's right. Because the kalas again with a form, right? Things like there is the samudrika. How is his nose? His nose is perfect. And so even those the samudrika aspects are also perfect, and they all come in place only with the saguna Brahma. When you go to the nirguna, it is more more meditative in nature, and more it is for realization. So you cannot perceive with the five senses. You have to go beyond the five senses to actually perceive the nirguna.
And if you look at even the Saguna Brahma concept and Nirguna Brahma concept, it is actually very important for us to contemplate on it, because many times we get really confused when we look at a picture and people start thinking that are you worshipping a picture or you worshipping God?
Mm.
So when Bhagavan used to say that this body is an indicator for you to know God. So even this body is also a direction. It is not the ultimate. So imagine that is how we are supposed to keep looking at the whole creation.
Correct.
Creation is a reminder that there is somebody.
Right.
Yeah. So similarly, when you put an idol or Ganesha in your home, that is a reminder that there is somebody that we are trying to reach.
Correct.
And that form has been placed for us to focus, to meditate, so to know what is behind that, what is hidden behind. So that plays a beautiful Sagun part.
Correct. Yeah,
So I'm
same
not
thing.
finding any
That
answers here.
the Ram Gita says that yasmad bhutani jayanti yena jivanti yatra cha liyante jnayamekam tad brahmaivahi mumukshubhihi. So that Brahma which through which the whole creation came, and it is also sustaining. And it also goes one step ahead and says that it will also merge in him finally. Right? That is the Parabrahma.
Smita sister has mentioned attributelessness. Attributelessness is the word you're giving. I'm asking you, what are those attributes which they have defined as a negative attribute? Forget the word negative right now, otherwise it will confuse you more. I'm saying, give me 3 attributes of Nirguna Brahma. And I can give you a hint that it is common and you all know it. It is so funny that we have heard it, but unfortunately we never pause to internalize these things. There's also movies made on that. Can you imagine? The names have a movie also, but unfortunate it is. So Sagun Brahma, Nirgun Brahma, it's a very beautiful concept, and 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 the beauty. What I find another aspect of Jagdish is that that what we consider as Sagun
Mhm.
could be different for somebody else. So what I call
Yes.
Nirgun for myself could be Sagun for somebody. For example, the astral world. Just let us take a broad
Mhm.
sense. See,
Mhm.
we look at physical world and we call it astral world as Nirguna, the one
Mm.
without the physical form, right? How we define Saguna and Nirguna is that Saguna has the grossness and Nirguna Brahma has not a grossness part of it.
Right.
But the people who live in the Nirguna state, our rishis have an ability to be as good as in astral world as they are in the physical world.
Yes.
Hanuman did studies in say, physical in astral world, and our even contemporary rishis have traveled. They travel in astral world, so
Mm.
for them astral is as real as live as the
Totally.
physical world.
Yeah.
But for me, that is nirguna. But for them, that is saguna. Correct? And this could
So
be like a extreme saguna. This could be like a totally gross.
I think if you're if you're talking about astral travel, and but there is still a body that is traveling, the astral body, right? So as
But
soon
what I'm
as we say
yeah.
body, then that's saguna.
No,
For,
but the
actually,
point I'm making is that for a human who is bound by the physicality of our
hmm
gross body, for us, even that form of astrality
hmm
is nirguna because
oh,
we don't
totally, yeah.
conceptualize.
For
But for the
us, yes,
people who are exposed to that aspect of
correct,
life, for
correct.
them that is not nirguna.
That
They are
is
looking at maybe they
manifest,
are
in
looking
fact.
at something more subtler to
Mm,
say that that could be nirguna. So
correct.
what we are thinking as nirguna Brahma probably is still not Nirgun Brahma.
Nirguna.
You understand? Because when
Yeah,
Bhagwan said that the whole complex is Saguna, is my Virat Rupa,
yeah,
and this mammoth cosmos, this whole cosmos is still Saguna, which is still black holes are millions there, which we have
correct.
no idea about. So
That
imagine that
way,
Saguna, yeah, so that's why I'm telling you that Nirguna aspect becomes too fast for us.
totally, we can never describe it. That's the whole point. That yato vacho nivartante, yapra tatprapya
Aprapya
manasa
Navasha
saha
Visasa.
anandam brahmano vidwan.
Okay,
That one.
here we got some answers here. Let's look at it. Relativity. Smita says relativity, attribute now, creation, sustenance, and destruction. Oh, difficult to perceive beyond sense. Is it invisibility? No, brother Suman, confusing. Mind can trick you to perceive. I love it. Okay, thank you for participating. I'll give you the answer. The Nirguna Brahma Salakshanas are Satyam, Shivam, Sundaram.
Venom.
Truth, infinity, and blissful. That is Nirguna's
Satchitanandam.
Salakshana attribute. Can you imagine? And they call it as a negative attribute. So this was another discussion for us that why do they call this as a negative attribute?
Mm.
Because any attribute which has a distinction which is not Kaivalyam,
Right.
is in a supreme consciousness considered to be negative. So that is why in Vidya, when we define our knowledge also, it's defined as Vidya and Avidya. So Avidya is not ignorance. Avidya is that which is not. So which does not take you near the supreme is Avidya.
Correct.
So simple logic. So in that approach of Bhagavan, in the Godhead's approach or a Vedantic approach, Salakshana of Satya, Sundaram, that infinity and bliss, they are considered to be negative attributes of Nirguna Brahma, because
Correct.
that makes Nirguna Brahma as a distinctive factor from the Nirguna Tita aspect.
No,
So
I
that has
think
been labeled.
one beautiful parallel that we can draw. It's not a parallel. In fact, it's a direct definition, probably from the Vedas, the Nasadiya Sukta, which says Na Sadasi, no Sadasi. So, in fact, it goes on. But then there it says that there was neither Sat nor there was Asat. Right. So, if you say Brahma or the Parabrahma is Satchidananda, here is the Veda that says there was no Sat. So, if there was no Sat, was there Brahma? There was the Nirgunatita over there, and he did not have these negative aspects of Sat, Chit, and Ananda, which came later on, and then thereon the creation happened, right, brother?
Thank you for bringing it up, because that actually answers this whole puzzle. That Nirguna Tita took it upon himself as Satchit Ananda,
Correct.
as an attribute, and then the further Nirguna happened and then
Creation
Saguna
happened.
happened.
Yes.
Wow. So imagine, like, what are we merging into? And this is a very important, I would say, these are fantastic, learnings, but mind-boggling concepts, if I may say, which can really take us to different levels of understanding. Okay, at this point, let me show you another next slide, which is another interesting aspect is Samadhi. The Samadhi, as we understand, and I've used Samadhi because I thought translations, anyways, are, you know, disservice to the whole discussion. So, and we can use our interpretation and our logic to understand Samadhi. So let us use the Samadhi as a state of oneness with the Supreme Brahman, in whichever level it could be. Okay. And then he says there are 6 types of Samadhis. And this is very interesting, and this will actually culminate the whole discussion from that part. So we have Savikalp Samadhi, we have Nirvikalp Samadhi. These Savikalp has got Drishyanuvid and Shabdanuvid, two kind of Samadhis, and Nirvikalpa. These three gives you Jivan Mukta. So if somebody says that he's a Jivan Mukta, or we keep defining so many people as Jivan Muktas, they are of this stage where they have achieved Drishtanuvid and Shabdanuvid and Nirvikalp, these 3 Samadhis.
Hmm.
Once we have got these 3 Samadhis, then we move into Nisankalpa Samadhi, Nivrittika Samadhi, and Nirvasana Samadhi. And this 3 ultimately bestows us on Videha Mukti, which ultimately gets defined as Kaivalyam. So Jivan Mukta, Videha Mukta, and Kaivalyam. So where are you, Jagdish? Are you still there?
I'm here, brother Sai Ram.
Okay. So because this is very interesting. So Jagdish, would you mind sharing your thought on Drishtanuvid and Shabdanuvid?
Yeah.
Savikalp Samadhi.
So correct. So in fact, here in the Savikalpa Samadhi, so the Drishyanuvidha and Shabdanuvidha, when we talk about these, right? So Samadhi, again, what is Samadhi itself? Samadhi is to have ascendance over all your senses and also the mind. So there the mind is in such a state that it basically does not go into the duality aspect, which then the mind also doesn't talk about good, let's say bad, or what I like or I don't like. These kind of things are not there. It's in a very pure state, right? And there you again talking about the ashtanga yoga and the way it ascends, right, through the dhyana and then samadhi. So at this point there still is dhyana, right? So dhyana is basically the basis on which samadhi sits, isn't it? So the dhyana here still happens of a drishya. So let's say the very form of Hanuman that you show here. Let's say I I have it in front of my eyes and I am meditating upon him. And then when I am meditating upon him, I have lost all vagaries of my mind are basically merged in that aspect, and then I am at that samadhi state with him. So there I still have pictures, or what I see with my mind's eye. Although the mind is totally shant there, it doesn't have a lot of vagaries or no vagaries at all. It is totally concentrated on a particular drishya. That is the savikalpa samadhi, drishyanavidha savikalpa samadhi. Similarly, the same thing, there is one thing that is one level higher than that. So again, this whole thing should be seen as slowly taking you away from one attribute by one attribute, right? So here, what is more subtle than the drishya, or for your mind, what is more abstract is the shabda. You can imagine, you can meditate on a form easily than meditating on a sound, shabda. So that becomes more subtle, right? So that is the shabdanavidha samadhi, which sadhaka basically meditates on a particular sound. It could be a bijakshara, it could be let's say Ram, the Lord's name itself, but it's still the shabdanavidha. When that is lost, it's the nirvikalpa. Then there is neither sound, there is nor vishya. It's basically simply pure samadhi, right? That's the nirvikalpa samadhi
But
aspect.
how do you define, how do you explain nirvikalpa, vikalpa? What is vikalpa?
Yeah, so vikalpas are basically vagaries of the mind. So again, it comes from choice, right? So vikalpa is, so you take the root word in Sanskrit, it's basically a choice. You go for
So
either
nir.
A.
So what does nir represent? Does it
It's a
represent
negation. It's a
inhalation?
negation. No,
Is
it's
it
a negation.
negation? Okay.
Negation. So there is no vikalpa over there, which is why nirvikalpa. Nihi vikalpa is nirvikalpa. There, so in fact, if you observe the way your mind normally operates, it goes for A or B. So you give me an apple and an orange, mind will immediately say, oh, I like an apple more. So right. So that kind of a thing. It goes for A, B,
So
A, B,
can
A,
we
B.
so can we say that in savikalp samadhi
Hmm?
we are consciously uh, overpowering, so to say,
Hmm.
our vikalpa of drishya and shabda, the
Totally.
sound, the vision and the sound, we are overpowering by our will. So that
Yes.
becomes savikalpa.
Yes.
Nirvikalpa is in which we do not uh, entertain these two vagaries at all,
Not at all.
and it becomes kind of a natural to be in that stage.
Correct.
Okay, so this is what is the samadhi, three samadhis, and in Ram Gita it is defined as when you have these three stages achieved, you are labeled as Jivan Mukta. But interestingly, he says also that in Jivan Mukta you have the body still connected. Some connection to the body is still alive because you are in the frame, in the body. And then it calls about the Sankalpa, Vrittika, and
Vasana.
Vasana. So, can you just briefly mention about Sankalpa, Vrittika, and Vasana?
Yes. Yeah. So in fact, sankalpa is a decision. right? So again, Nisankalpa, Nihisankalpa, Nisankalpa. So negation of Sankalpa. So there, when you are Jivan Mukta, basically, there is no Sankalpa. So you won't say that, okay, I will, let's say, meditate. So when I think I should meditate, it is a Sankalpa. I don't think that I should meditate. I meditate. I am there already, right? So that is the level. So Nirvrittika, again, Nirvrittika, Vritti basically is one's job. So job is the gross definition here, but Vritti can also be used, let's say, for the actions, or for the nature of a certain thing. So the mind, like Swami says, is a mad monkey. So its nature is basically to jump, right? And in this case, it is Nirvrittika. So the vritti, or its nature, or its job of jumping is lost. It's not there. Okay, that is the Nirvrittika aspect of it. Nirvasana is a little more. So in fact, here also you see there is a progression. Okay, Sankalpa happens by somebody's, okay, you tell your mind that do this, do that, right?
There's some kind of a
Vritti,
will, some kind of an.
correct. So vritti again is basically the nature of the mind to jump, which is not there. The third one is something that you don't normally control. The vasana. The vasana normally comes from the purva janmas, and many deeds that we have been doing for a long time, right? So these vasanas are also controlled. So you are in such a state of mind that the vasanas, or things that your mind is used to doing for a long time, right? So the muscle memory of your mind is lost. So even that is gone, and then you are like, the mind is totally dissolved. So like Swami says,
If
die
you,
mind is a diamond, right?
yeah. So if you look at it, Sai, what I look at it is beautiful is that sankalpa, vritika, and vasana, they actually bind the body.
Hmm.
The physicality is bound by these things.
Correct.
That there is some kind of a will to have a body, some kind of will which makes the vrittis to fluctuate, the fluctuations of happens, vagaries, and then vasanas get imprinted. The imprints
Yes.
also happen,
Right.
and so when these three aspects are, I won't say it is negated, it is actually surpassed. It doesn't make
Right.
any sense.
Right.
It doesn't remain on
Right.
you. So
Right.
you become Videha Mukti because now you have no body connect left.
So negation in terms of the word, which means that it's not there. So just like you said, it is surpassed. So when you surpass it, it's not there anymore. You're beyond it, right? Yeah.
Because when I see Nirvikalpa, there is still some kind of, that there is still some kind of an, what do you call, awareness that
Mm.
I am, that there is something which is not doing it
Okay.
and
Yes.
which is crossing. But when it comes to Nisankalpa, here it is, the Sankalpa doesn't exist.
Yeah.
There is no need for Sankalpa. The concept of Sankalpa doesn't exist. The
Correct.
vagaries don't exist. The imprints don't exist. So you are just there. I find it very interesting, and I would humbly request the audience that listeners, please bear with us. Because these concepts and we how to connect with Bhagwan's beautiful words will come back next time. But here, I would just like to leave it to the whole concept to soak in. Because when I look at examples, I'll give you an example of say Ramakrishna Paramahansa. He was absolutely Jivan Mukta person. But he got trapped in Jivan Mukta because he loved the mother in the physical form. And there comes a great sage called Totapuri who hits him with a chimta. And that's a very beautiful story which goes like he hits him and Ramakrishna goes in a trance. And they say that was a transition of Ramakrishna. But what I now understand from my little understanding here is that Totapuriji came to give him the jump from Jivan Mukta to Videha Mukti.
Mm.
And then onwards, Ramakrishna lived untouched, unconcerned with the body. So till then, he had body consciousness and he had the sankalpa to help, sankalpa to do things, to pray, worship. So that all disappeared with one slap. So that is a jump from Ramakrishna from Jivan Mukta to Videha Mukti, what I little understand now. So similarly, if you look at Janak, Janak was called Videha
Videha.
because that also shows that, and that happened with Ashtavakra.
Hmm.
Ashtavakra gives him that Videha Mukti Gyan. When he says, "Give me your mind," and Janak said, "Given." So I would say that was Jivan Mukta who was eligible to give, and after that he lost it. And then he became Videha, and that is why Janak is Rajarishi and he's called Videhi. So fantastic. See, we use these words, but unfortunately, we never understood the import and the depth of seriousness of these designations given to each person. So I think in India we have got like in scores Jivan Muktas, but Videha Mukta it is hard to find. You know that they are far and few. But Jivan Muktas, and when I look at all of that, I feel Bhagavan has kind of served us in a platter, Jivan Mukti. If we do little bit of effort, we are in Jivan Mukta stage
Correct.
because he has already provided for us. When we live, we always say Swami's will. We always have this attribute of saying God's will, God's will. The Indian attitude is like that. If anybody who is in a spiritual path, we talk like that. We always behave in that realm of God's will. So we are anyways giving the savikalpa, but we don't remain in that constant. And I remember now the discussion when we said, don't ride the two boats as both of you are talking about. And this would happen if we remain in that one stage of life, and that will get say savikalpa. So, audience, I feel this topic is not easy, and I don't know why we ventured into it. It must be divine will, and I would really appreciate all of your participation. And please give us your feedback. Should we continue or not? And should we make it a little more lighter? I don't know how to make it lighter, but we can only cut the content a little bit. But every content, when we look at it, we find it so exciting that we think at least we should bring it to your notice. So at this point of time, I would say, Brother Jagdish, we'll call it a day for today, and
Yes, brother.
we'll pray to Bhagavan that keep giving us strength so that we can, we are venturing into very deep waters. So thank you, audience, and I request you all to please give your suggestions and comments that how are we progressing and what more can we do to make it worthwhile an effort. So really grateful to Bhagwan for the opportunity. But Sai Jagdish, any final words you want to say before we close?
No, very very humbled by this effort, brother. So even the process has been very beautiful for me. Studying this, has also taken me, has at least given me the knowledge. It has kind of told me where I am. So and the distance that I need to go. And by Swami's guidance and by his will, all of us, sadhakas, maybe go and we maybe finally reach Swami as our final, Nirguna Atita Parabrahma state. Okay, with that,
Oh,
would like to.
certainly. And I would encourage people to please read. They are not hard to read books. They are
Yes,
hard to digest books, but not hard to read books. So at least if we can start the reading part of it, it will help. So I would personally request all of you to please go through these two texts, uh, what we call as Ram Gita to Lakshman and Ram Gita to Hanuman. At least these two texts, if we can go through, we'll know what our scriptures are all about and how our Lord's avatars have worked so hard for us. So thank you so much. Sai Ram, everybody.
Sai Ram.
Thank you, everywhere. Sai Ram.
Sai Ram.